my colleague, Reverend Lisa, she had some issues with Facebook this morning, so I'm hoping that this is not going to be an issue now. So it doesn't look like it, but you never know. And I appreciate her giving me the heads up just in case something happened, because Facebook, just like Zoom, like lots of technology, can be wacky at times, as I'm sure a lot of you know. Of course, it had to happen in these daily readings since we got a different reader for 31 days. My boss, my senior minister, Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings, would be in one of them. And here he is, almost in the middle of the month, the 17th of August. So today's reading is courtesy of Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings, our senior minister, who, along with Reverend Lisa Ryan and I, are ministers at Creative Life Spiritual Center based here in Spring, Texas. And Reverend Katie Roxbury-Gatti is our other minister who's based out in California. She's our distance minister. So there are 4 of us, and we have about 20 practitioners who are too numerous to mention right now, but are a wonderful team who support people in prayer, which is always good. This is called, of course, Your Divine Birthright. The first quote is from Lillian de Waters, and I didn't know anything about her, honestly. So I had to look her up. She's a really interesting character. And even though I'm supposed to read this reading out to you, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do the reading, and then I'll tell you something about Lillian de Waters, because she's an interesting character. She said, and by the way, she lived in the latter part of the 19th century and the first part of the 20th century. She said, our part in life is to lift our vision, behold and accept the path that is already made for us, and walk in that path. And that was Lillian de Waters. And actually, the reading today is written by Ernest Holmes. You know, until recently, when Reverend Jesse Jennings always writes the October daily readings in Science of Mind magazine. And in the past, he would actually just quote from Ernest Holmes, and then he would give us an affirmation. And then the team at our magazine said, look, you know, you're an expert on Ernest Holmes, but we want to hear from you as well. And so later on, I think starting last year and this year it will be, of course, they've asked him to quote from Ernest Holmes, but to write the piece for himself. Why did he quote Holmes? I guess because he thinks that Holmes can express things better than he can. I don't think that's true. I think Reverend Jesse Jennings is just as good at explaining things, maybe in some cases even better than Ernest Holmes, because, well, he's my senior minister, but I'm not saying it just because of that. I think that he deserves to be heard for himself and not just through Ernest Holmes. Anyway, this is Ernest Holmes from Your Invisible Power. It was published in 1940, and this is from page 12 of some edition. And I say that because I know that not all of us use the same editions. Your Invisible Power, Ernest Holmes. Here it is. To think is to create. You have already been thinking and creating. Now you wish to create good instead of evil, abundance rather than limitation. You have this possibility within you, for the law within you is set in motion by the mind within you, and the mind within you is the divine, having complete authority over the law, and he's capitalized it, which means the universal subjective mind. But you must reverse your use of this law. You must accept your freedom, announce your liberty, and proclaim your divine birthright. Whatever you believe to be true about the divine, declare this to be the truth about yourself. Know that the power within you, which is the divine, is the law of good, establishing right action in your life, is this. In this manner, you will gain dominion and exercise authority. To think is to create. This is really the key that opens the doorway to wisdom and power. That doorway is already within you. Somewhere within the mind of the divine reveals this truth, that you were born free, that the will of the divine for you is one of goodness, truth, and beauty, that all the power there is for you, and all the will there is wills life. You are the image and likeness of this life, capitalized. You are the personification of it, capitalized. You are the personality of the divine. The kingdom of heaven is already within you, and the law of that kingdom is harmony, peace, and joy. And as I said, that was from Your Invisible Power, 1940, page 12, published in 1940. Holmes here says to think is to create. And he says, you've already been thinking and creating. And then he says, now you wish to create good instead of evil. I wouldn't have used evil, but he did. Abundance rather than limitation. What he's saying here is this. And actually, thinking in this sense means combining two things. It's the actual thought plus the emotion that goes with it. So to think in this sense is the thought plus the emotion. In other words, belief. So what he's saying here is simply this, that your mind is always active. Your subconscious mind is always working. Yes, our objective minds are always working as well most of the time. But what he's saying here is your subconscious, your subjective mind is always working. And therefore, you're always creating. So in other words, you don't have to be thinking about something to be having an impact on the universal subjective mind. So he's encouraging us here to be thoughtful about what we think. And when we start to think more and more good things, it starts to negate any negatives that may be already in our subconscious minds. So that is what he's encouraging us to do here. And he's saying that your belief brings about your reality. He goes down, towards the end, he says, the kingdom of heaven is already within you. Who said that? I mean, which first famous person said that? Not once, not twice, but numerous times. Jesus of Nazareth. The kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven is within you. He said that often. So Holmes is really, even though he didn't say so, he's quoting Jesus here. So this idea is not new. It's been around since at least Jesus' time, and probably way before that. But Jesus just knew. The difference between most of us and Jesus is that he was most likely aware of what was going on in his subconscious mind. And if there was any negative there, which who knows, he would get rid of it. But also, his belief was so strong that it turned into knowingness. So when he claimed something, he really knew it. His belief, his thought and feeling were so strong that in the one that produces everything, whatever you want to call it, the universal mind, God, Allah, whatever you wish to call it, the field, if you like, was so strong that things just happened for him. So that's what he's telling us here. He's telling us to be on our guard. And Jesus at different times said that, be on your guard about what you're thinking and what you're feeling. Right? I said I read a bit about Lillian DeWater. She was an interesting character. It says she was born in 1883 in Stamford, Connecticut, and she grew up in Christian Science. She had a Christian Science background, and then she started to study metaphysics in her teens, and then she started to study the Bible. And it says it was from the Bible that she learned from all else to turn to the divine. She uses God directly. As she grew on, she actually expanded her knowledge, and she expanded her wisdom, and she expanded her belief systems, and she moved on from Christian Science, and she developed her own, I guess, following and everything. And it says in the write-up here, she wrote a few books. She didn't write a few books. She wrote at least 18, and they're all listed down here. So Lillian, Lillian, all one word, de, capital Waters, de Waters, all one word. So it's 20 minutes to 6 almost. I have, believe it or not, I have to make a mundane trip to Home Depot, but I will be back tomorrow at 5. Reverend Lisa will be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Our service will be at 11. We are getting a new Wi-Fi system. In fact, we've installed a new Wi-Fi system. Our service provider, who I won't mention, has been slow to upgrade the speed of our internet. However, we do have the option to use hotspots, so please tune in at 11 o'clock tomorrow. And we had some issues last week. I'm sure we'll get over them this week. And whatever happens, you can be sure of this, just like this recording and Reverend Lisa's tomorrow morning, it will be recorded and it will be available on Facebook. It will be available on YouTube. So you've got no excuse for not seeing it. So there you are. I see more clearly than ever before that my divine birthright is freedom, joy, and eternal goodness. I see more clearly than ever before that my divine birthright is freedom, joy, and eternal goodness. I think that's a great affirmation. I've got to say it's a great affirmation because Reverend Jesse wrote it, and I will see him tomorrow morning about 10 minutes to 11, maybe 20 minutes to 11. So I'm just joking. So have a great rest of the day, whenever that is. If it's the weekend, phenomenal. If it isn't, it's okay. Just have a wonderful rest of the day. And for goodness sake, especially in this heat, look after yourselves. Be careful. Be really careful. Look after yourselves and just know that you are divinely protected and that those you look after are divinely protected. Until next time, namaste.